Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome back to the live book circle reading of our book, Flying Potion. We are here at the Rockaway Pointe Lighthouse doing a live reading up in the circle room, book circle room that sits right below the WBAT 44 AM radio station. So many of you have joined me here. This is where the lighthouse has a little gift shop and a little gallery of local artists, and we have a little pop-up today coming in with a hot chocolate cart and some various treats and things. You know it is. We are recording this little live circle in mid-January, so it's a little brisk up here at the lighthouse. The wind from Rockaway Pointe Bay is blowing in a little strong today, but we are safe and cozy in our little round tower, and we are going to continue with the reading of Flying Potion. So last time we met together at Albie's Christmas pop-up shop, we were left with a cliffhanger of what was Dakkar going to do with this job proposal that Highcore, his boss at Bringers of the Light HQ, had offered him this big upgraded job position. And, Dakkar was like, but what about Rockaway Pointe? And what about Abigail? And according to Highcore and the dossier packet of the job details, it was everything that Dakkar could have wanted. A house in the French countryside. He could keep his house in Rockaway Pointe. He could continue to go back and forth. He would pretty much do whatever he wanted. In exchange, though, for taking more high-profile assignments, more covert assignments off-planet, which means he might be gone a little bit longer, but who knows with the magic of time and space, out there versus down here. Maybe him being gone longer out there wouldn't be so long down here. We don't really know about that yet. But we're here now to break the cliffhanger. And if you listen to Bringers of the Light Sundays, on Sundays with me and all the guides, then you may have already heard the spoilers to this, but if not, settle back, take up a seat in one of the little cushioned like window seats in this little gallery gift shop area. Grab yourself a hot chocolate. We do have a special offering coming up later in the reading that I don't know exactly what it is yet. C Star, who is our DJ at WBAT 44 AM, is preparing a special little surprise for us as an offering for you all. So she will bring that down to me when they are ready for that. But right now, without further ado, let's continue with Chapter 18, A New Life Opens Up. Well, suffice it to say that Dakkar couldn't pass up such an opportunity. It was just too good, almost too good, he thought, as he got himself ready to meet Abigail for dinner and break the good news. He really was getting it all. Everything he'd been asking for so long now. All the requests to Highcore for upgrades and new roles, even his secret wish to travel more and to have a place where the wind wasn't constantly blowing off the water. He'd get to keep the bungalow, but he'd also been offered a dual residence in one of his favorite places. He would travel between his home in Rockaway Pointe and his villa estate in the French countryside. Oh, the adventures that he and Abigail would have there. And so close to so many places he'd been dreaming about traveling to for so long now. And his agent status had been up-leveled 5 degrees to a leadership position. He wouldn't have to be in the trenches so much. He'd be mentoring other agents most of the time, which would give him more time to spend with Abigail. And with that realization and the new payroll he'd been promised, in addition to all his investment accounts, he'd have more than enough to live off of, even with the generous salary upgrade that Highcore had mentioned to him. They'd pass the slip of paper back and forth with numbers, But eventually he'd gotten what he wanted. Everything and all the things he'd wanted for so long had just been offered up on a golden platter and were his for the taking. A whole new world and way of living had just plopped into his lap, so to speak. Although if you looked under the covers, you'd have seen how hard he'd worked, energetically, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, to have this new life of his dreams. Nothing could stop them now, Dakkar thought, as he pocketed the red velvet box with the vintage diamond and emerald ring inside. By this time tomorrow, Abigail would agree to become his bride. And with all those wishes and dreams accounted for, he could finally spend some time looking forward to the rest of his life. Chapter 19. Hand in Hand. Dakkar walked from his bungalow to Abigail's place. He whistled and took in all his surroundings, still a bit high in his thoughts from all the good things that had just happened to him. Abigail and Rainicourt were waiting for him on the front porch. She looked stellar, he thought to himself, something akin to a bright, shining star. She beamed, which made him beam brighter inside, and he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that this decision was the right one. He walked, almost jogged up the path to the porch. He swept her up in his arms and twirled her several times, which made her laugh. So giddy from his energy, Abigail felt all her cares melt away. He had that effect on her. So when he gently set her down and then knelt on one knee, heart in his hands, she giggled gleefully. Abigail smiled. He sniffed back a tear for some reason. This wasn't the end of anything, only the beginning. Was he mourning his single life? Not really. He was just realizing the passing of time. And if he didn't move on this now, who knows where life would lead them both. "Will you marry me?" he said, looking up at her. "Don't you know it?" she said, with her aura beaming so much love back at him that he forgot about the passing of time. The gray at his temples, wanting to come through, and all the silly reasons why he hadn't done this sooner. "Well, then that's settled now, isn't it?" He smiled slyly, slipping the ring on her finger. A deep aura of protection surrounding them both, and somewhere in the astrals, both their parents sighed in relief. They both had finally received everything they'd worked so hard for. And now they could, but before they could celebrate this auspicious engagement, a cry went up from the bungalow next door. Mrs. O'Malley's daughter came running out of the house, frantic and crying. "It's happened! It's finally happened!" she cried. "What happened?" Dakkar said, feeling a weird sensation around him. "They've taken Mother," Cassandra O'Malley said with distress. "The old ones have come and taken Mother. We have to get her back. She's the key to Madrigal." Here's where it takes a quite interesting turn and goes even more, as crazy and fun as our books can go, as these channeled pieces of art can go. Chapter 20. The key opens up another dimension. Okay, before I go into chapter 20, I feel like this is our little break time coming in. First, to get a drink, let me get a sip of this great hot chocolate from our hot chocolate pop-up. Delish. I have a peppermint hot mocha mochaccino, mocha choco. And Sea Star has just shown up with the surprise for today's live circle reading. So this applies to everybody that's here in person with me in the gallery and gift shop reading circle area. This applies to anyone listening. This is being broadcast live over WBAT 44 AM right now. So if you're out there listening over at the radio waves in town, or if you're listening somewhere else on YouTube, on podcasts, on Spotify, this applies to you right now as well. So the town, along with WBAT 44 AM, are sponsoring a joyful January tasting card. So it is a little tasting card that you can purchase. You can get them directly here at the Lighthouse gift shop. And they're also going to be in several places about town. The people that are, the businesses that are sponsoring this event will also have the tasting cards for purchase. But what it is a card for 5 different tasting events around town. I know that the Chai House is one of them. The Black Tongue Inn is another. So these are things like, a free coffee or something, dinner at Black Tongue Inn. There's a couple more too. I think the Flame Hot Yoga Bar has a special offering, a free yoga class and something delicious at their little juice bar. So this is being offered today at a discount. If you pick it up now, you can get 20% off of the tasting card if you get one today, and it's good all the way to the end of February. So anybody who wants to have a little romantic getaway by themselves or with their person, maybe if you celebrate Valentine's, even if you don't, I think all the shops in Rockaway Pointe are going to be very festive right now for this joyful January, just in observance of all the good things that have come to them so far and been granted to Rockaway Pointe so far. So you can take a look at the tasting card at WBAT44AM's website. Or if you're here in person, you can come see me, or you can go see C-Star, and she will show you all the little things that are on there that you could take advantage of. And the way you do it is you just buy the tasting card, and then it's like a little punch card or whatever. You can take it with you. There's QR codes. I don't know. It's like high tech, but not high tech. But you can take it with you to the different locations that are sponsoring this event. Or make some of you have to make a reservation. I think the Black Tongue Inn, you'd have to make a reservation. Just tell them you're using your tasting card. But anyway, so that is a great offer for a very low price, I would say, for all the magical offerings on there. So thank you, C-Star. Very generous offer from the city of Rockaway Pointe, from the local Chamber of Commerce, and all the businesses that are participating in this event to help us have a joyful January, but it does go into February, fun February, and to help us just, up here in Rockaway Pointe, it'll be early spring, February 1st, with Imbolc coming not that far away, so helping us get back into the light and the springtime renewal, and we hope to see you with this tasting card. All right, I think now we are ready to move on with what's going on all of a sudden. We're going to be transported into a little bit of a little thing. Sometimes these books go off into a little vortex somewhere, and we don't talk about this a lot in the audiobooks, but these are magical texts and magical proses, and they're all done via automatic writing with my guides. I just come read all the magic to you all. But on Bringers of the Light Sunday, we do take this magical readings a little bit deeper, and we use these books as healing tools. They are just fun little magical stories. I'm getting another sip of my mint chocolate. But they can also be used as divination tools and healing tools as well. So if you like what you hear here, you can join me the other offerings that we have at TLC for the Soul. Without further ado, though, let's go into chapter 20. The key opens up another dimension. Mrs. O'Malley, Sandra, well, I can't get this throat thing going. Mrs. O'Malley, goodness me, Sandra to be exact, wandered up and down and back and forth. She had to resurrect herself from this location. She didn't have it in her to be out here right now. She wanted back to her daughter and back home by the ocean. The key to Madrigal was firmly planted in her heart space, and so would remain until the time it was needed. Well, Sandra thought that time was now. Ever since Linnaeus McGee planted it there so long ago that she almost couldn't recall why he had done so. It was another time and another place. Sandra now was someone else back then, and that old Sandra had made a wish to return home from the place where she had been trapped. An old tower stood tall with battlements around it. the soldiers of the Badlands fighting to keep her and her family safe. But safe from what? Sandra, who was known as Bethany back then, was the heir of Madrigal, a magical installation deep inside the Badlands, and she had a mark on her that shone through when she was happy and disappeared when she was sad. This mark shone itself when one day... Okay, let's get this straight. This mark shone itself when one day a magical being showed up at the castle gates. This being, who we know as Linnaeus McGee, held a deep magic and a cunning secret. Get the key to Madrigal and save the Badlands from itself. Now Linnaeus had been told that the key was a person, but he didn't quite know who that person was. The only thing he knew was that a magical mark would appear on the forehead of said person when they were very happy. So Linnaeus had traveled the Badlands up and down, making a stupid fool of himself in front of aristocracy and common folk, doing all he could to make them smile. Many, many Badlands folk had cracked a smile at his inane jokes and silly backsprings. Dances, jigs, and more were performed as he made an arse of himself, all with the intent of getting the key of Madrigal to display a magical mark. Then, on the 22nd year of this inane quest, he came upon the Castle McIntyre. Castle McIntyre was the home of Baron and Baroness McIntyre of the Dragon clan of the Acropolis. Deep magics surrounded the castle, but Linnaeus was able to decode them all with the help of his Powerball. And now he stood waiting in the court hallway as the court-in-waiting agent took his request to the Baron and Baroness. An afternoon of debauchery, drinks, jokes, puns, riddles, and his illustrious dancing in exchange for a room, for how long he couldn't say. But he would know at the end of his quest whether the key of Madrigal was in residence here. And if he found said person bearing the mark, well, then what? Well, old Linnaeus McGee had that all planned out, but suffice it to say he won't share that here now, lest you let on to the Baron and Baroness what the true intentions of his plans are. So for now, you will also partake in Linnaeus McGee and his afternoon of debauchery, drinks, jokes, puns, riddles, and his illustrious dancing in exchange for a room, for now you will bear the inanity of it all, in exchange for deeper magic on your quest. Chapter 21. The key reveals itself. Sandra awoke on a bench in Loveland Park with nary a recollection of where she'd been or how she'd gotten herself far from home. She recalled making a pot of tea, and then there he was standing before her, holding that darned key. She would recognize him anywhere. Linnaeus McGee had shown up lifetime after lifetime for Sandra, but this time she felt that the curse or magic or whatever it was might finally be lifted from her somehow, so that she would never have to go back to Katana ever again. A security guard for the park recognized the older woman sitting bewildered on the bench and approached her with care. Miss, is everything okay?" The guard was oblivious to all the PC monikers one used nowadays to address people. "I'm not sure how I got here," Sandra said, still bewitched by the flying potion dust that Linnaeus had blown in her face as she turned to face him in her kitchen. She did recall him saying that this time they would figure it out together. The two of them would fly back in time, and they would break the mark of Katana curse and finally be free. Finally free. Sandra wondered if it was really true. Could they finally beat it, this curse this time? "My daughter," Sandra said, pushing her bangs aside. "She'll be wondering where I am." The security guard, Brett Haverstrom, took out his walkie and spoke into it. "Haverstrom here. I need a car out to Loveland Park. Yeah, we have a person who needs to get home." He put the walkie back in the holder and looked with care at Sandra. "Someone is coming to take you home," he said, hoping that someone would do the same if they found his mom outside and alone like this. "Thank you," Sandra said, lifting her gaze to the sky, the effects of the flying potion dissipating. She heard a couple laughing as they walked nearby. The man bent to kiss the woman on the forehead. and then swooped her up in his arms as they both laughed. "I love this life," the woman said as she twirled around, holding the man around the neck. And Sandra wondered if now that they had seemingly lifted the curse of Katana, if she could finally get on with loving her life again. "Well, that remains to be seen," old Linnaeus McGee said, walking up to her and Brett as they waited for the car. "Are we done with all this now?" Sandra said, wincing at the sight of him and all the treachery he'd put her through. Linnaeus sat down beside Sandra while acknowledging Brett, but not really caring that he was there. "Miss, do you know this person?" Brett said, eyeing Linnaeus McGee, who was now dressed as a fine and dapper older man in his green velveteen suit, an eye-catching but completely ridiculous Robin Hood felted hat with the long turkey feather in the brim. "Yes," Sandra said, allowing Linnaeus to take her hand. "He's perfectly safe now." And like that, the curse was broken. Chapter 22. Linnaeus McGee and Sandra make a life together. A church bell rang, and a song went out from Flanagan's Cathedral that made everyone in town feel safe and cozy. Now, you may have garnered from the title of this chapter that old Linnaeus and Sandra drive off into the sunset together. But it wouldn't be right to just come together like that and then run away into wedded bliss. They had work to do together to strengthen and fortify their relationship, and many choices would be presented to help them on their quest. For now, Sandra returned home to her daughter, and Linnaeus chose to remain in Rockaway Pointe and take his time with Sandra. There was no rush to the altar or any reason to think that they simply couldn't be friends and lovers and see where the winds of fate led them. So now we return to Dakkar, who would be taking on his new position with his soon-to-be wife, Abigail, at his side. But no wedding date had been set there either. Too many assignments rattled around in both their heads, and the winds of fate turned clockwise, moving them towards whatever they both wanted in this world anyway, which was pretty much the same thing, so no need to rush the higher powers that be. Abigail had so much work at Crust, and she was wanting to bring in someone to help her. That would give her ample time to travel with Dakkar if she wanted, or take some alone time off if she wanted that too. Dakkar would be leaving for Bringers of the Light HQ in the morning, his first assignment. He was to report to Zeta Reticuli and suit up for a mission with the elite guard to rescue a mighty horned troglodyte from the clutches of Count Avenir's blue-plated army. He didn't know how long he'd be gone, so he'd planned a lavish dinner with Abigail tonight. No expense spared as he reserved the entire night and all the tables at the Black Tongue Inn. He would have his moments, and so many more. And for that, all the upgrades, the crazy good karma, the love, and everything he wanted queuing up for him, will suffice it to say he was one very happy bringer of the light. All right, friends. All right. That is what we have for you so far. I think we've brought everybody up to speed. This coming Sunday, for Bringers of the Light Sunday, we move on to chapter 23, which I have not channeled in yet, but I've brought in the title, which is Zeta Reticuli, or Route 66. So we'll see what's going to be happening there. And I want to thank everyone who's shown up today at the Lighthouse or that's listened from wherever you're listening. I want to thank WBAT 44 AM for sponsoring this event, and you can listen to Sea Star every night at the witching hour on WBAT 44 AM for music. I don't know, there's jokes, there's poetry, there's interesting things that happen during the witching hour with Sea Star. And if you'd like to take advantage of the tasting card, that 20% off will be throughout today. And then after that, you can come into the Lighthouse gift shop or go to any of the establishments in town that are sponsoring this event and take advantage of that tasting card purchase from there as well. So I hope you all have a magical, joyful January, and we will see you somewhere again soon at some other live book circle reading or somewhere else in the astrals, maybe around town in Rockaway Pointe or Tesla Lock. But definitely you'll be hearing again from us here at TLC for the Soul. Thank you and take care.